Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be sharing Holo Taco's new Rock Candy collection. This is a massive 7-piece collection in a rainbow lineup in their new crushed holographic shimmer formula, similar to what we saw in Spyglass from the last release. I do have some thoughts on these, but I will save those for after the many comparisons that I have. As usual, I will have timestamps in the description, but for now, let's just get into the swatches. So first we have to take a look at the beautiful collection box. It has this rainbow kaleidoscope kind of effect all over. It continues on the inside as well, and it says you're crushing it over this white holographic background. So the first shade in the collection is Electric Sweetener, and this is a purple magenta crushed holographic formula with a blue iridescent shimmer. So right away, I was super impressed with the formula on this one. I found it very full coverage, very pigmented. It applied super evenly. I wouldn't exactly call it a one coater. I'm sure you can still see some nail line, especially if you're in more direct lighting, but this was a solid 2 coater. I honestly don't think you would need more than 2 for this one, and I definitely love the color. It is just so beautiful. Easily one of my favorites. The next shade we have is Pop Rocker, and this one is described as a bubblegum pink crushed holo formula with an indigo blue iridescent micro shimmer. So personally, I wouldn't call this a bubblegum pink. I usually find those to be a lot lighter and even cooler toned, but I'm definitely not complaining about that because I feel like Holo Taco just tends to release very cool leaning pinks, so I love this warmer one, especially in contrast with that indigo blue shimmer. But if anything, I feel like the base was just a little deeper or more muted than I was expecting it to be. As you can see, this one had another lovely formula that just glides across your nail. It's super pigmented and applies evenly. It was a little bit more sheer than the previous shade, but it built up beautifully in 2 coats. Next up we have Jam Session, and this one is described as a red coral crushed holo with pink iridescent micro shimmer. Again, I totally don't agree with the color description on this one. When I think of a coral shade, I think of it leaning more pink, and to me this leans much more on the red-orange leaning side. Maybe it's supposed to lean a little bit more coral because of that pink shimmer, but I don't know. To me, it just really reads as a very orangey red, which aren't really my favorites, so I don't know how I feel about this one. I want to like it, but I just feel like it's a little too orange for me. Either way though, the formula was just as smooth and gorgeous as the other ones, where it has a little bit of that squishiness, but still very full coverage on 2 coats. You see some nail line, but I don't think you need 3. Next up we have Sunshine Crush, and this one is a warm golden yellow crushed holo with an orange to pink iridescent micro shimmer. So unfortunately this one was my least favorite, which I was pretty upset by because I was looking forward to this one. I thought it was gonna lean a little bit more orange or like a yellow leaning orange, but I feel like this is very much like a golden shade that is a little warmer, and I just don't find it super flattering on me. This one did have a really nice formula though. It was just the most sheer, obviously because it's such a light shade. You do see the most nail line with this one. I only stopped at 2 coats here, but I can definitely see some people wanting a 3rd. And even though this one does have a contrasting shimmer head on, it's not as strong, and if anything, I kind of preferred it more in indirect light where you get more of that golden glow. Up next we have Sour Note, and this one is just described as a green crushed holo with a pink to yellow micro shimmer. I was honestly really surprised at how much I liked this one because I normally don't love these bright, medium-toned, grassy greens, but I thought it was just so pretty. This one again had a beautiful formula that was very full coverage, applied evenly. It was just a little bit squishy, so you still see some nail line, but I found it builds up perfectly opaque, or at least opaque enough for me, on just 2 coats. But similar to the last shade, even though this one does have a contrasting shimmer, I found that it just didn't pop out as much, so I wish it glowed more. Moving right along, we have Blue Rizzler, and this is a blue-violet crushed holo with a pink iridescent micro shimmer. Even though it's not on the website and I also had a hard time capturing it on camera, I feel like the pink shimmer also does shift to a kind of yellowy color in indirect light, so it does have a little bit of a color shift like some of the other shades. The formula on this one was super gorgeous, just like the other shades in the collection, where it was very highly pigmented, applied evenly, and built built up to almost full opacity in 2 coats. Again, I think you could see a little hint of nail line, but I just don't think it's enough to do a third. I think I would say this is another favorite from the collection. And rounding out the collection, we have Sugar Rush, and this is an off-white crushed holo with a yellow to orange iridescent shimmer. So I was a little nervous about the formula on this one because I personally did not like the formula on Milky White Shimmer, but I don't think that Sugar Rush's formula was quite as bad as that one. As you can see, it is a little bit sheer and a little streaky in some spots, but overall I found it still very easy to work with and very highly pigmented and pretty full coverage. So with careful application, I think you could get away with this on just 2 coats like seen here. It's still obviously a little sheer, but I think the coverage is pretty even, but you still might need a third. So here is most of the collection worn as a skittle. I just decided to not include the white because I really wanted to do a cute little rainbow skittle. So I have both the purple and pink on my thumb, and I'm wearing 2 coats of each here. Like I said before, the yellow is the most sheer, so I could see more people wanting a third for that one specifically, but I think the other shades look great in just 2. So my only kind of complaint is that I didn't find the shimmers to really stand out as much as I wanted them to, especially in direct sunlight. I feel like some of them just kind of got lost in the base and the others just weren't as glowy. Getting into comparisons, we're starting with Electric Sweetener, and I wanted to show this next to Purple Slushie. Even though that one's a linear holo, it's mainly for a color comparison where you can see how much lighter and warmer toned Electric Sweetener is. So I thought it would be more similar to something like Antihero from the Retro Anniversary collection last year. Even though it's obviously a very different formula, Antihero is also brighter and even more red leaning. I also have a couple of bottle comparisons with a few ILNP shades, starting with Fairy Dust, which is a super iconic purple holo scattered jelly with this orange micro shimmer, so kind of a similar vibe but different colors. And here it is next to Flower Child, which is surprisingly similar, I guess because they both have a blue shimmer, but the shimmer in ILNP is a lot more glowy and the base is a little bit more pink and more sheer too. Next, I have a couple of Mooncat bottle comparisons, starting with Everybody Scream from the Nightmare Before Christmas collab. While this is a purple with a blue shimmer, this one is more of a micro glitter formula with a darker, more blue-toned purple base. In a similar vein, here it is next to A Very Merry Unbirthday, which is from the Alice in Wonderland collab. It's more or less the same kind of color as Everybody Scream, just a different finish where it has these micro flakes as opposed to glitter. It does also have a blue shimmer that I think is a lot stronger than Holo Taco. The shimmery crushed holo formula reminds me the most of Cirque's shimmer graphic formula, so I wanted to save most of the nail comparisons for that. Electric Sweetener immediately reminded me of Jammin Out from the somewhat recent Twisted Tea Party collection, which, as you can see, is another purple base with blue shimmer. Cirque's is more on the jelly side though. It's not as opaque as Holo Taco, and the base is a little bit deeper maybe. I would say the shimmer is the same, but the holo I think shines more in Cirque's, even though you can't really see it well under this lighting. Moving on to Pop Rocker, we're starting with a couple of Holo Taco pinks, starting with Hot Wire Pink, which is another linear holographic, so again, a totally different formula, but color-wise, it's deeper, warmer, more of a true hot pink. I also wanted to show it next to Blush Money from the Shimmering Secrets collection. That one again has a totally different formula where it's more of a silver holo micro glitter in a jelly base, but the base is lighter, a little bit cooler toned. So I thought a closer shade would be Bury Me in Holo from the Sophia collection last year. That one is a crushed holo formula, but as you can see, it's even warmer, a little deeper, and doesn't have any shimmer. Next, I wanted to show it next to Mooncat's Merkitten, which is a different formula. It's more of a shimmery crelly with a dainty holo sparkle, and obviously it's more of a true hot pink with a brighter blue shimmer. I also got a request to see it next to Do You Play Croquet, which is from the Alice in Wonderland collab. That one is more of an orchid pink where it's very like blue toned or almost purple leaning and has a bit more of a flaky sort of finish, so I didn't really find these to be that similar. I also have a few ILNP ILNP bottle comparison, starting with Flower Child, which as you can see is a lot more of that cooler pink leaning color, almost very purple leaning next to Pop Rocker. And again, the shimmer just glows so much more. I also got a request to show this next to Pink Flamingo from the Summer Nights collection a few years ago. Even though the shimmer color is very obviously different, where it's more of that lime sort of color in ILNP, the bases at least are a little bit more similar than Flower Child was, for example. But I would say Pink Flamingo leans more on the corally pink side, while Pop Rocker is more of that true medium pink, and again, Merkitten is a true hot pink. I'm wearing 2 coats of each, by the way, and ILNP's is definitely the most jelly of these 3, while Mooncat's is the most opaque. And lastly, here is Pop Rocker next to Cirque's Pinkies Up from their Twisted Tea Party collection, which again is another shimmer graphic polish. This one has a similar medium toned hot pink kind of base, but I think it's a little bit more of a true pink. I want to say Pop Rocker looks a little bit corally next to Pinkies Up, so the bases are a little bit different, and the shimmer is different as well, where it's more of a pink shimmer in Cirque as opposed to blue. Now for Jam Session, I wanted to quickly show this next to Red Licorice and Orange Drink because I feel like, again, Jam Session just leaned more into that red-orange leaning territory. Color-wise, I feel like it fits perfectly in between these two, even though, again, these are totally different formulas. I, of course, also have to show this next to Bury Me in Holo again, which is kind of a similar, like, medium-toned shade, but that one's obviously more pink, while Jam Session is more of that orangey red. And I also wanted to show it next to Encryption Key, even though, again, that's totally different formula-wise, just for a color reference, I guess. I would consider Encryption Key to be like an orangey red-leaning shade, but it's a little bit more red than Jam Session is. So I was kind of immediately reminded of Mooncat's My Sandy Claus outfit from their Nightmare Before Christmas collection. That one's another sparkly red micro glitter that kind of has a similar pink shimmer, but it's not as orangey, so I thought to also compare this next to Cirque's Red Bottoms from their Atelier collection last year. Even though that one is a hollow jelly micro glitter sort of formula with no shimmer, I thought the bases were going to be a little bit more similar at least, but Red Bottoms is a bit darker and more of a true red with a little bit of an orange undertone, while the Mooncat shade is more on the red pink side and again a little darker, so these ended up not being dupes at all. I really thought I wasn't going to have anything similar to Jam Session, but then I remembered ILNP's Poppy from their Splash collection a few years ago. It's one of their hollow jelly flaky formulas, and it doesn't have any shimmer, but I feel like the base color is at least the most similar to Jam Session, at least for what I have in my collection. It's just a little bit darker and a little bit more on the true red leaning side, but if you have a pink shimmer topper, you can kind of recreate Jam Session. Next for Sunshine Crush, I wanted to show this in between Orange Drink and Lemon Sucker, which are the linear hollow formulas. So again, this is more for like a color reference thing, where Sunshine Crush definitely leans in the middle, but for some reason on me, it just pulls very yellow. So I did also get a comparison request to see this next to Demeter's Harvest from Mooncat's Goddess Complex collection. That one is more of a true golden yellow and kind of a crelly formula with a subtle shimmer. So definitely not dupes, and here it is next to Cirque's Shaka, which if anything is closer to Demeter's Harvest, being that bright yellowy base color. This one does have a red shimmer, but again, just totally different vibes. I was honestly immediately reminded of Bottle Service from the After Party collection last year. If I remember correctly, that one was described as a very warm golden shade that's like almost on the coppery side. It does have a golden shimmer, but is more of a metallic kind of formula with these hollow flakies, so totally different look, but color-wise, I think these are the closest. Bottle Service is just a bit darker. Next for Sour Note, I wanted to show this next to Green Taffy and Full Charge, which is no longer around, because at first I thought this was going to be a perfect like in-between shade, but you can see how much more yellow leaning Full Charge is. So it does look closer in color to Green Taffy, but not nearly as dark. I also wanted to show this next to Everything is Pine, which is one of the retired glitters, because I felt that these were also surprisingly similar in the shade of green that they are. Everything is Pine is a little bit darker, but honestly not by that much. I also got a comparison request to show this next to Mooncat's Plankton from last year's Mermaid Tales collection, which I was so surprised to see how similar these were. I just remembered Plankton being a lot darker, so it initially wasn't on my radar. It has more of a green shimmer in a crelly base though, so a little bit of a different look. And of course I have a few Cirque shimmer graphics to show this next to, starting with All In, which I thought was going to be closer, but this has a little bit more of that yellow leaning green color, so it's more reminiscent to Full Charge. And here it is next to Ethel from the Kelly Marissa collection, which I remembered being as a medium green that has that same kind of pinky red shimmer. And like the other shimmer graphics, it's more of a jelly kind of base, but even on the nail it just looks a lot darker than Sour Note. So again, it was pretty surprisingly similar, at least the base color, to Mooncat's Plankton, but I definitely wouldn't call these dupes. I have two more quick bottle comparisons for ILNP shades. The first one was Willow from the recent Wildflowers collection. I thought these were going to be a bit more similar because this ILNP shade has a very fine microflake formula that I thought looked like the Crushed Holo, but obviously it's a lot more yellow leaning. And here it is next to Frankie from the Fright Night collection last Halloween. That one is a magnetic, but just looking at these in the bottle, I thought these were going to be a bit more similar than they are, but Frankie's just a little too dark. Then for Blue Rizzler, I thought this was a pretty solid in-between shade of Blue Freezie and Spyglass, because even though it's described as a blue violet, I just find it to be a lot more on the blue side, where it's almost like a dark cornflower kind of blue, but there still is a little bit of that purple undertone. I was also immediately reminded of Cool Cat Mom from the Birthday collection last year. Even though that one is a magnetic, it still has a blue base with a pinkish purple kind of shimmer. But as you can see, Cool Cat Mom is several shades darker, so these aren't really dupes at all. I thought it might be a little bit closer in color to something like Wireless Mode, which again is a totally different finish. It has more of this aqua green sort of shimmer, but I think the base color in Wireless Mode is more of a true blue. It might be a little lighter though because it's also very sheer. I also have a few Cirque bottle comparisons, starting with Wipeout from last year's Surfer's Crush collection. They obviously have a different shimmer color, but even for the bases, I feel like they look similar here, but Wipeout is a bit brighter and more of a true blue. There's no purple undertone like in Blue Rizzler. If anything, I thought it would be more similar to Heart of Glass, which is from the Cosmic Discotheque collection, because it has more of that pinky purple kind of shimmer, but as you can see, the base is a lot deeper and again, more on the true blue side. Lastly, for some ILNP comparisons, we're starting with Bluebell from the recent Wildflowers collection. That one is definitely like a true cornflower blue, so it's not as purple leaning as Blue Rizzler, and it's a little bit lighter as well and with more of a contrasting orange shimmer, so definitely not dupes. But I was convinced that I did have a dupe for this, and that was ILNP's Pool Party, which is from the Summer Nights collection. It practically has the same kind of color combination, and they look extremely similar in the bottle, but on the nail they look so different. ILNP is more of a jelly formula, so it's a bit more sheer as you can see here. I'm wearing 2 coats of each, and Holo Taco basically looks opaque and isn't as soft looking, and the shimmer is also surprisingly different. And lastly, I wanted to show a photo of KBShimmer's before and after because I got a number of requests for that one. This KBShimmer formula seems the closest to Holo Taco's Crushed Holo with this shimmer kind of finish, but color-wise, I would say KBShimmer is deeper and more of a true violet. And lastly, for Sugar Rush, I of course had to show this next to Milky White Shimmer from the Cookies and Crumbs bundle. That one is more of a true white with a crelly finish and this white shimmer, so it looks a little cooler and brighter than Sugar Rush that has this sort of silvery look. So I did get a request to show this next to Mooncat's Antivenom, which is a micro glitter formula, so it has a bit more texture compared to the Crushed Holo formula, but I feel like the base colors are pretty similar. Antivenom just has more of a a greenish shimmer. And I did also want to show it next to Mooncat's What a Brilliant Nose from the Nightmare Before Christmas collab, but that one is a brighter white crelly base with more of a pinky shimmer. So these ended up not being as similar as the other ones. So here on the nail, I have Milky White Shimmer on the left and Mooncat's Antivenom on the right. So even though I did say that Sugar Rush has a bit of a silvery kind of look, it looks a bit more similar to Milky White Shimmer than it does to Mooncat's Antivenom, but maybe that one just needed another coat to build up the white base a little bit more, so definitely not dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and many comparisons for Holo Taco's Rock Candy collection. I'm really sorry that I didn't have the time to do all of the comparisons on my actual nail. I literally only just started working on this video last night and I wanted to get this out as soon as possible for you guys. I tried to be as detailed as possible when it came to the descriptions of the differences for the polishes. If you did find those comparisons helpful, I really hope that you consider leaving this video a like, especially because of how fast I got this out. I'm honestly pretty impressed with myself, but yeah, I would love to know what you think of this collection and if you picked it up already or if you're still on the fence, because like I kind of hinted in the intro, I just feel conflicted about these. So let me explain why. A couple of months ago, I first saw those rumors that Holo Taco is going to be giving us a rainbow crushed holographic formula in this summertime. And as a fan of the crushed holo finish, I was so excited for it. But then once I saw the promo teaser shots, I was a little on the fence about it because maybe this is my fault, but I was just expecting a full bright rainbow lineup, very similar to the original linear holos, just in a crushed holo formula. So when I started to see the colors of these, I was like a little let down because it just wasn't the true rainbow I was expecting. But then once I saw more of the marketing and promo shots, I was like, okay, you know what? These are actually kind of cute. Like they're just a little bit brighter and in slightly different shades than what they already have. And obviously I love the marketing with like the whole rock candy. The vibes were perfect. So I got excited again. But then after trying them out myself, I feel like I was just let down again. And I wasn't fully sure why that was. Like at first I thought maybe it was the undertones of these polishes that I didn't find super flattering. But then I kind of had the feeling that I had with previous Holo Taco releases where the initial kind of promo shots were just so bright and I was expecting these to be a lot brighter, like having that super punchy color. I feel like these just fell a little flat. Even when it comes to that shimmer crushed holo formula, I really feel like the shimmer really pops under like direct lighting. So in some of the swatches that you saw, the shimmer looks like super glowy, but that's not really how you end up seeing it more often in real life. And like I mentioned with some of the shades, I feel like the shimmer just kind of blended in with the base color and didn't really pop as much either. And again, I'm not sure if it's just the specific shades or undertones of the polishes that just like clash with me or something, but I really feel like a lot of it is the lighting that we see where, you know, obviously Holo Taco is gonna have gorgeous studio lighting, but it's just a little disappointing that it isn't the first time that it's happened where I've seen a promo shot, I've gotten super excited for the polish, only to be a little let down once I try it myself. So all of that to say, I don't hate these by any means. I think they still are absolutely incredible formula-wise. And I do think the colors are cute. I just don't feel like they're exactly for me, which, you know, is fine, but it still sucks because I was really looking forward to these. Like I already said a few times, I am a big fan of their crushed holo formula, and I especially loved the shimmer combination like we saw in Spyglass. So I really was looking forward to this more like rainbow lineup of them. But once you see them in comparison to other brands that have more or less the same kind of finish or look, I feel like these sort of paled in comparison to some of those. So those are all of my thoughts on this collection. I've yapped enough, so I would love to know yours down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!